They say innocence is disarming. But what if it's a mask? What if the softest face is just bait and the brightest color hides the darkest trap? There's a story passed quietly between towns, whispered near bridges and old dirt roads, a little girl with a red balloon, always alone, always smiling, always waiting. They say if you see her, it's already too late. Not because she's dangerous, but because she makes you forget what danger even feels like. Stay with me tonight, and I'll tell you why no one ever follows the girl with the red balloon, not twice. Before the streetlights flicker and the wind settles strange, take a breath, like the last one you'll take outside this tale. Tap the like button if these stories find you when the world grows still, and subscribe if you're ready for more strange quiets. Let me know where you're listening from and what time the girl finds you. Now, hush. Let the air still and watch closely, because she's watching back. It doesn't have a name, not officially. Maps list it as County Route 47, but no one calls it that. To the locals, it's just the stretch, or that road past Hollow Pine. A narrow, two-lane path winding through thick woods, too shaded even at noon, and so silent you can hear your tires crunch over loose gravel like bones. It's not the kind of road you take unless you have to. There's nothing out there. No homes, no gas stations, no reason to be driving that way after dusk, and yet there are stories. The kind that make you slow down without realizing it, the kind that keep the windows rolled up, even in summer, the kind that explain why some folks take the long way home. It starts subtle. A missing hiker, a stalled car, someone's dog runs off into the trees and never comes back. Most people chalk it up to the woods being wild and dense and little too far from reliable cell service. But ask the people who've lived here the longest, the ones with greying hair and eyes that never stop scanning the treetops, and they'll tell you the stories go back further, way further, before headlights. Back when the road was a trail, and travellers told of seeing something strange just past where the trees begin to lean in too close. They all talk about the same thing. A little girl, standing still on the shoulder of the road, wearing a white dress and holding a red balloon. No one knows her name. No one's ever heard her speak. Some say she waves, a soft, slow movement that feels more like a warning than a hello. Others say she just stands there, balloon in hand, face tilted slightly like she's listening for something only she can hear. People used to think it was just a kid playing near the woods, until the stories started matching. Different cars, different times, always the same girl, always the red balloon. Always around dusk, when the sun turns the leaves that coppery gold and the road seems to flicker between this world and somewhere else. And always just for a second, just long enough to make you wonder if you really saw her. The sightings aren't constant. They come in waves, usually once or twice a year, enough time in between that people start to forget. But it's always someone new. A teenager driving too fast on a dare, a lost delivery truck rerouted by GPS. A couple arguing on the way to a cabin who suddenly falls silent as the girl comes into view. The stories differ in detail, but the girl never changes. She doesn't age, she doesn't speak, she doesn't move, except maybe the balloon bobs slightly. But even then, some say it doesn't float. Not really. There's one curve in the road, sharp enough that drivers have to slow down or risk skidding into the ditch. That's where she's usually seen. Just beyond the guardrail, where the trees thin for a moment and a narrow footpath disappears into the undergrowth. No one knows where that path goes. It's not marked. It doesn't show up on satellite maps. But if you stop your car there, if you roll down your window, you might hear something strange. Not a voice. Not quite. Just wind chimes. Soft and delicate, like they're hung from nowhere. And here's the thing. She's never seen in the same place twice in a row. Sometimes she's standing in the clearing. Sometimes on the opposite side of the road. Once, a man said she was in the middle of the lane, facing away from him, the balloon floating directly above her head. He blinked, and she was gone. The balloon, though? He found that still bobbing just ahead, caught on a low-hanging branch, said he touched it, and his hand went cold for hours afterward. Not numb, cold, like it had been in the ground. You start to notice other things, too. No bird song near that part of the road, no squirrels or deer, no tire marks past a certain point, like cars just stop going that far. Some say it's superstition, others a local prank, but no one's ever admitted to it, and when someone tries to set up a camera or trail cam to catch her, the battery drains, the footage blurs. Once all they got was a single frame, the balloon red and motionless, and what looked like a small hand just at the edge of the frame. The sheriff doesn't talk about it, won't even log reports anymore. Too many with matching details, too many that can't be dismissed as coincidence. The official line is, keep your eyes on the road. And if you see a child with a balloon, don't stop, don't get out, just drive. That's what the locals say too. They stop trying to explain it, they just warn. And here's the thing, it's not just about seeing her. That's what makes this road different. The girl doesn't chase anyone, she doesn't scream or beg for help, she just appears, quietly, like something waiting to be noticed. But it's what happens after that's worse. People forget things. They get lost in their own neighborhoods. One man drove straight into his mailbox 3 days after spotting her and couldn't remember doing it. Another started sleepwalking, always toward that road, always with his hand out like he was trying to hold something. There's a reason no one walks that stretch, not during the day, not ever. The trees don't look quite right there, the air smells off, sweet and sour all at once, and the shadows fall the wrong way, especially near dusk, like the light is coming from somewhere else entirely. So if you're ever driving along a quiet road and see a girl in white holding a red balloon, don't wave, don't slow down, and whatever you do, don't stop. Because this road doesn't just lead through the woods, it leads to her. And she's been waiting a very, very long time. The first person to talk about her publicly was a mail carrier named Joni. Not the kind of woman given to exaggeration, practical, quick-witted, the type who knew every dog in town by name and didn't scare easily. She'd been working that same route for almost 12 years. But one day, she just stopped delivering past Hollow Pine. Said she wasn't willing to make the loop anymore, not even for overtime. At first, people thought it was just burnout. The road's rough, the drive long, and when you're the only one delivering out that far, the silence can get to you. But then she started telling a few friends what she'd seen. Nothing dramatic, nothing dangerous, just strange. A little girl standing at the edge of the woods, pale dress, red balloon. Joni said it was late afternoon, golden light pouring in slants through the trees, and she was rounding that familiar bend where the road curves sharp along a mossy stone wall. That's when she saw her. The girl didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there, right at the edge of the tree line. The balloon floated next to her, but not like you'd expect. It wasn't bobbing in the breeze, it was still, like the air around it wasn't moving at all. Joni blinked, glanced back in her rearview mirror, and the girl was gone. No sound, no movement, just an empty stretch of trees and quiet road. She didn't think too much of it until the next day, when she saw her again. Same spot, same time, same motionless stance. And this time Joni didn't blink. She kept her eyes on the girl all the way up to the bend, and still, as she turned the corner, the girl vanished like smoke. She went home that night with a dull headache and an uneasy silence that seemed to cling to her even hours later. A week later, someone else mentioned seeing a girl on the same road, a high school student driving back from a friend's house around dusk. She described a pale figure, not in the middle of the road, but just to the side, standing near a mile marker that hadn't been maintained in years. She'd slowed down, thinking maybe it was someone lost, maybe even hurt. But something stopped her from rolling down the window. "I don't know how to explain it," she said later. "It was like I felt noticed, like she saw me before I saw her." And that's what starts to show up again and again in these accounts, not just that people saw the girl, but that they felt seen. There's an odd stillness to every version of the story. No running, no crying, no motion at all, really. The girl never walks toward you, she never makes a sound. And yet, every person who's seen her describes the same sensation, that unmistakable awareness of being watched, not in a hostile way, just intentional. One man, a retired teacher, said he saw her while cycling that stretch early in the morning. The sun had barely risen, mist still curled around the base of the trees. He noticed her from far off, a splash of white in the dim green-grey of the forest. He figured it was a lost camper, or maybe someone waiting for a ride. But as he got closer, she didn't move, not an inch, just stood there, her balloon hanging beside her like it was filled with stone instead of air. He didn't stop. Something about the air felt heavy, like a conversation you're not supposed to overhear. Later, when he tried to explain what he saw, he said he couldn't quite remember her face, just that it was too calm. It's never panic that people remember, it's the quiet. A local diner waitress tells a similar story. She was driving home late, just after closing, taking the long way through the woods because it helped her think. Music was playing low, headlights cutting through the dusk like pale fingers. And then, there she was, standing beside the guardrail, dressed clean, balloon still. The waitress said it wasn't that the girl looked dangerous, it was that she didn't look anything. She said, "It's like when you pass a scarecrow that's too well made. Your brain takes a second too long to label it. You can't quite convince yourself it belongs." From that point on, stories started cropping up more regularly. Nothing viral, nothing posted online, just quiet murmurs around town. A girl with a red balloon, always near dusk, always where the trees start to crowd the road. She doesn't chase cars or scream warnings. She just exists, out there, waiting. What's strange is how no one agrees on how far away she is. Some say they saw her from 50 yards, others swear she was just on the shoulder, close enough to see her fingers curled around the balloon string. And yet, no one can describe those fingers exactly. It's like remembering a dream where the details dissolve the harder you look. A photographer once tried to capture her. He'd heard the stories, thought maybe he could document whatever was happening. He drove the road every day at dusk for a month, setting up motion-activated cameras along the stretch. He said the first time he saw her, it was so fast he thought it was a reflection. But the balloon, that red circle, burned in his memory. He reviewed hours of footage. Nothing. But on one clip, just a few frames long, he caught a shadow. No face, no figure. Just a brief moment of disruption, like light had bent the wrong way. The frames after that were clear again. No girl, no balloon, just a blurry stillness in the corner where the light didn't quite sit right. That's the pattern. She doesn't show up clearly, not on film, not in photos, just in memory. Like she isn't entirely made of the same stuff the rest of the world is. Like she's echoing through the space where something used to be. And then there are the kids. Not many, but a few have said things that adults don't quite know how to explain. One 6-year-old told her mother she didn't like going past the bend because the balloon girl watches cars and picks her favorite. Another boy said he'd dreamed about her, said she told him not to follow the string. When asked what string, he just pointed to a spot on the living room carpet and said, "The one under your feet." Children are the only ones who ever mention her speaking, and even then, it's vague, like the memory of a lullaby you heard once, long ago, familiar but slippery. And yet, despite all this, no one's ever really seen her face clearly. They remember the dress, the shoes, the shape of her hair, but when it comes to her eyes, her expression, it's as if your mind skips over that part, like it's too much to hold on to. The moment passes and the details wash away, leaving only impressions, calm, still, not quite right. So the town watches and waits. They keep the stories quiet, shared over coffee or on the front porch, and they mark the season by when she shows up again. It's always around the same time. Late summer, just before the leaves turn, when the light grows soft and slanted and shadows stretch longer than they should. That's when the balloon girl returns. She doesn't come every year, but when she does, it starts the same way, someone driving just a little slower than usual, eyes drifting to the side of the road. Then a glimpse of white, a flash of red, and silence. If you ask the people who've seen her, they won't tell you she was frightening, they'll tell you she was quiet, unmoving, present. They'll say they don't remember her leaving, only that suddenly she was gone, and that, somehow, that's the part that stays with you the most. Most stories stop at the sighting. A glimpse of the girl, the still balloon, the hush that falls over the road like the world's taken a deep breath and isn't quite ready to exhale. People see her, they drive past, and if they're lucky, that's the end of it. Just a strange memory. A detail to share years later at a bonfire or over a cup of coffee. A story that always begins with, "I'm not saying I believe in that stuff, but then there are the other stories, the ones that start with curiosity. Because not everyone drives past. Some people slow down. Some stop completely. Some, though fewer and fewer now, get out of the car. It usually begins the same way. A person sees the girl alone on the roadside and something about her seems off. Not wrong exactly, just unfinished. Like she belongs to a different moment in time. She doesn't move. She doesn't speak. But the air shifts. The forest quiets. And something in your chest urges you to look closer. Maybe she needs help. Maybe she's lost. Maybe, if only for a second, you think you recognize her. And so you step toward her. That's when the strangeness begins. It's not loud. Not sudden. The moment you cross that invisible boundary between the road and where she stands, the world changes without announcing it. A fog rolls in, not thick, but just enough to soften the edges of everything. Trees stretch taller than they should. The ground feels uneven, like the earth beneath your feet is holding its breath. Sound doesn't disappear exactly, but it loses its edge. Leaves don't crunch, branches don't snap. Even your own breathing seems muffled, like you're underwater. Time slows. Or maybe you just stop feeling it. People who've walked those few steps toward the girl say they can't remember exactly how long they were gone. Watches stop. Phones freeze. One woman swore she was only gone a few minutes. Her friend waiting in the car said it was over 2 hours. And then there's the matter of the road. More than one person has claimed the road itself changes when you step off of it. You turn around expecting to see your car, the guardrail, the familiar curve, and it's gone. Not vanished completely, but different, longer, darker. As though the space between where you stand and where you came from has stretched. The trees close in, the light dims even if the sun hasn't moved. One man, a surveyor, said the shadows bent wrong. He said it looked like the light was coming from 2 directions at once. He followed the girl only 10 feet into the woods, thinking she was some child playing a trick, but when he turned to go back, the road looked like it was a mile away. And the girl? She was closer than before, always quiet, always watching. He didn't remember walking back. Just waking up hours later in his truck, parked safely by the side of the road, engine cold. The balloon was gone. His boots were wet. There was dirt under his fingernails and a faint ringing in his ears that took 2 days to fade. Others describe strange feelings, like déjà vu, or the sense that they've been in that exact spot before, even if they know they haven't. The trees seem too symmetrical. The air too still. One hiker described it like being inside a photograph, flat, frozen, and just slightly wrong around the edges. And then there's the forgetting. People who follow her often forget why they did. They'll say things like, "I just wanted to help," or "I thought she dropped something." But when pressed, they can't remember what that something was. A few don't remember seeing the girl at all. They remember stopping. They remember stepping off the road. But not why. One man, a teacher, left his car idling with the door wide open, his phone on the seat, his wallet untouched. He was found sitting in the grass beside the trees, blinking slowly, arms wrapped around himself like he was cold. It was the middle of July. When asked what happened, he said, "She smiled, and then I wasn't me anymore." But that's where the accounts stop making sense, because none of them can describe what happens after that. They try, they reach for words, they say things like too quiet or too bright. One person described a moment where every sound seemed to happen in reverse, like the world was rewinding itself just out of sync. Another claimed the balloon pulsed, like it was breathing. And there's always a pull. Not physical, not like being dragged, but emotional. A nudge, a whisper in the bones, a reason to keep walking, even when you know you shouldn't. That's the danger. She never reaches out, never beckons, but the space between where you are and where she is, it starts to feel smaller the longer you look at her. You don't notice yourself stepping forward. You just do, like she's filled that space with something familiar, something you've missed, something or someone you're not quite ready to let go of. People say they hear things when they follow. Wind chimes, a laugh, the soft pop of a balloon. All too faint to be real, but all too specific to be ignored. It's like the world just to the side of this one is calling, gently, sweetly, without threat. That's why people keep going, until they don't. Most who follow her don't come back. A few do, but they're not quite the same. They move slower, speak less, forget names or places or how long they've been standing still. One teenage boy sat in the middle of his driveway for over an hour after his parents found him. He didn't respond to his name, just stared at the sky and whispered, "I couldn't feel my hands." Another woman began humming a tune no one could identify, something soft and looping and oddly familiar. She couldn't remember where she'd heard it, but said it made her feel full and empty at the same time. What's consistent in every story is the same thing. No one remembers the moment they turned around. They don't recall choosing to leave. It's as if something let them go, or decided not to keep them, and that's the part that sits wrong with people. Because the ones who come back don't act like they escaped. They act like they were sent back. So if you ever see the girl by the side of the road, holding that too still red balloon, don't wonder what she wants. Don't try to figure out who she is. And above all, don't follow. Because she's not lost. But if you follow, you might be. It should be the least disturbing part, shouldn't it? A child with a balloon. A soft red orb tethered to a thin string, drifting lazily above her hand. Innocent, harmless, almost sweet. But anyone who's seen it, truly seen it, knows there's something about that balloon that just isn't right. At first glance, it behaves like any balloon would. Round, bright, catching the light just enough to glow faintly in the dusk. The color stands out, vivid against the muted tones of the forest and the graying sky. But look a little closer, watch it a moment longer, and that's when the questions begin. Because the balloon never moves, not the way it should. There's no sway, no bounce. No lazy tug upward like it's trying to escape gravity. It simply hovers, suspended perfectly still, like the air around it is holding its breath. It doesn't drift when there's wind. It doesn't bob when she shifts, if she shifts at all. It hangs beside her, unnaturally poised. And once you notice that, you can't stop noticing it. Some have said the balloon pulls downward, not up. That's the detail that sticks with them. A subtle tension in the string, not taut, but gently resisting, like the balloon isn't floating so much as being held back from sinking. One man, someone who works maintenance at a nearby campground, said he saw it flicker, not like a light, but like something underwater. For a moment, it wasn't round, it wasn't even there, and then it was again, as if reality had briefly forgotten it. Another story comes from a pair of hikers who spotted the girl from across a narrow stretch of clearing. She was standing still, of course, but what caught their attention first wasn't the girl at all. It was the balloon, just hovering there, no movement. One of them tried to laugh it off, said it looked like it was glued in place. But the other one didn't laugh. He said it made his stomach twist, because something about that stillness felt intentional. He described it later as gravity reversed. Like the balloon wanted to fall, but was being told it couldn't. That's not how balloons work. You think of balloons as light things, joyful things. They belong to parties, to birthdays, to fleeting moments that pop and pass and are forgotten by morning. But this one isn't like that. It doesn't shimmer, it doesn't dance, it doesn't rise, it just waits. One of the more unsettling stories comes from a truck driver. He was doing a night run, hauling equipment down through the wooded roads when he spotted the girl standing just off the shoulder. He said the balloon looked heavier, like it was full of something other than air. It drooped ever so slightly, the way a full water balloon might. But it wasn't sagging, it was resisting. Curiosity got the better of him. He slowed the truck, rolled down his window, and for a second he could have sworn the string of the balloon dipped lower, as if acknowledging him. He didn't get out, he didn't speak. But the next morning, when he did his routine walk-around inspection, he found something unusual, a single red thread caught under his windshield wiper. No one could explain it. The truck had never stopped. There were no trees overhead, no signs, no tape, just a piece of string, thin, frayed, the exact shade of that balloon, and it smelled faintly of metal. Another witness, a park ranger who patrols the nearby forest boundary, shared his story only once, and only after a long night with a friend. He said he'd seen the balloon from a distance, just the balloon, floating above the underbrush without a visible hand holding it. It was low, too low, hovering barely above the ground like it was looking for something. The girl wasn't visible at all. He followed it for about 20 steps before he stopped. Something in him said not to go any further. He turned around and it was suddenly behind him, not ahead, not moving, just there, as if the space around it didn't follow the same rules. The thing he remembered most? It wasn't the way it hovered or how his radio cut out completely during that moment. It was the sound, or rather the lack of it. He said that when he was near the balloon, it didn't feel like silence. It felt like absence, like the world had stepped out of the room and closed the door behind it. Then there's the old tale, the one that rarely gets told anymore. It said the balloon isn't filled with air at all, that it's not even a balloon, not really. Some say it holds something that once belonged to someone else, a name, a promise, a memory. Others believe it's a tether, something anchoring the girl to this place, or perhaps anchoring something else to her. There's a local superstition, whispered by the oldest members of the community, that if the balloon ever touches the ground, something changes, that it must stay aloft, that its stillness is not a flaw in nature, but a rule. And if that rule is broken, if the balloon falls, then the girl won't be alone anymore. No one knows where that idea started, but it's said in the same breath as a warning, never touch it, never try to grab the string. There's a story of a boy, his name's been lost, who reached out when he passed by on a bike. He didn't touch her, didn't speak, just reached for the balloon as he rode by. He didn't fall, he didn't crash, he just kept riding. But a week later, he was found sitting in his backyard, staring at his hands, repeating the same sentence over and over. It's tied too tight, I can't let go. And in all the stories that followed, that same phrase started to appear, not in reports, not in official notes, just in the margins. In journals, in whispered conversations. It always comes back to that balloon, the red balloon that doesn't float. You see, balloons are supposed to rise, they're symbols of lightness, of celebration. But this one, it's different. It holds weight, not just physically, but emotionally, visually, spiritually even, if you believe in that kind of thing. It doesn't lift. It doesn't lead upward. It holds its place, silently like a marker. a line that, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. So if you're ever driving that road and see her there, white dress, still as stone, the balloon at her side, don't look too long, don't roll down the window, and above all, don't think about what it would feel like to hold the string. Because some things aren't meant to be lifted, and some balloons don't float because they're not trying to rise, they're trying to pull you down with them. People rarely agree on the details. One person says the dress is white, another insists it's pale blue in the right light. Some recall bare feet, others remember small black shoes. The trees shift, the road feels longer, time bends in odd ways. But the one thing everyone remembers, every single person who's seen her, is the smile. Not wide, not sinister, just a simple, quiet smile. The kind you might see in an old photograph, frozen halfway between kindness and distance. It never changes. No matter when or where she's spotted, the girl's expression remains locked in that same gentle curve. Not quite joy, not quite sorrow, something in between, something that doesn't belong entirely to this world. Most who've seen it say it's not the smile itself that unsettles them, it's the stillness of it, the way it doesn't shift when she turns her head, doesn't flicker in and out like a moment of fleeting emotion. It's too consistent, too controlled, like a mask. One woman, a nurse driving home late from a shift, described it as a smile built from memory. She said it looked familiar, but not hers, like something she'd seen on someone else's face once, long ago. That almost recognition left her chilled for weeks. She avoided the road entirely after that night. There's a phrase that turns up in many of the stories: it didn't reach her eyes. A cliché maybe, but here it holds weight, because even when the girl's lips curl upward, her eyes, when people can describe them at all, seem far away. Not empty, but deep, watching, as though something older is staring out from behind them, using her expression as a kind of camouflage. One man claimed the smile moved slightly when he approached, not wider, not brighter, just tighter. Like the moment his foot stepped off the road, she became aware of it, of him. He said it reminded him of the way a cat watches a mouse that hasn't realized it's being followed. And then there are the tears. Not everyone sees them. But those who do say they're barely noticeable, a shimmer beneath her lower lashes never falling, just enough to catch the light, just enough to make you wonder. Some think she's sad. Others say it's not sadness, it's restraint, as if the smile is holding something else back. One girl, a college student walking with a friend, described it like this. She looked like someone who was trying very hard not to cry, and smiling was the only thing holding it in. Her friend didn't see the tears, didn't even notice the girl. Only remembered an odd sense of unease, like they were walking through a place that didn't want to be walked through. The smile becomes more noticeable the longer you look at her. That's another common thread. What starts as a faint, polite expression becomes sharper over time, not because it changes, but because you start noticing what's wrong. The way the corners of her mouth don't quite curve the same. The way her cheeks never lift. The way the smile stays locked in place even when the rest of her moves, if she moves at all. One woman said it reminded her of the mannequins in old department store windows, beautiful but unmoving, always watching, always poised, always a little too perfect. There's an old rumor in town that the smile isn't hers, that it was given to her or taken from someone else, an echo, a mimicry. That the girl didn't smile at all until someone taught her how, not through kindness or laughter, but through repetition, through observation. Like a child learning how to imitate what makes other people feel safe. Except the more she smiles, the less safe people feel. A teenager once tried to take a picture of her, claiming he'd seen her on a dare. He came back with a phone full of corrupted images, nothing but static and blur, except one file still intact, though heavily distorted. It showed a blur of white and red, a hint of a figure near the roadside, and in the middle of it all, that smile. The expression was clearer than anything else in the photo, more in focus than it had any right to be. It wasn't huge or exaggerated, just precise, perfect, as if the smile was the only thing the camera could understand. He deleted the photo that same night, said he couldn't sleep with it saved on his phone, claimed that when he stared at it too long he started to feel like he'd seen it somewhere else before, somewhere close. Another story comes from an older man who lived just off the main road. He said he never saw the girl himself, but his dog stopped going outside at dusk, wouldn't even approach the window. One evening, the man caught his reflection in the kitchen glass. It was dusk. The light was low. And for just a second he swore the reflection wasn't his, it was her, and she was smiling. He sold the house 2 months later. No one really knows what the smile means. Some say it's a trap, an invitation to come closer. Others say it's not for us at all, that it's meant for something waiting just beyond our reach. A signal, a message, a promise. But one thing is always true, the smile never fades. Not when she turns, not when she vanishes, not even when you blink and she's gone. It stays, etched into your memory, pressed into the back of your mind like a fingerprint on glass. You'll find yourself thinking about it days later in the middle of some ordinary task, and your stomach will twist for reasons you can't explain. Because deep down, you'll start to wonder if you've seen that smile before. And worse, if it's ever seen you. So if you see her standing there, white dress, red balloon, unmoving smile, don't meet her gaze. Don't try to read the expression, because it's not just a smile, it's a doorway. And once you start to see what's behind it, there's no guarantee you'll be able to look away. It happens the same way every time. The girl appears, still, silent, the red balloon hovering unnaturally beside her. The road narrows, the light dims, you pass her or you don't. Maybe you stop. Maybe you watch from a distance. Maybe you're brave enough to blink, and then she moves. Not much, just a step, maybe two, enough to vanish from sight. That's the moment they call the vanishing turn. It's not a location exactly, there's no specific curve, no mile marker, it changes. Sometimes it's behind a patch of trees. Sometimes it's around the bend where the guardrail rusts away to nothing. What never changes is what comes next. She walks out of view and doesn't come back. You might think she slipped behind a tree, or that the light played a trick on you. But if you go after her, if you follow that narrow trail or take the turn too quickly, something happens. You disappear too. That's how the stories go. There's a man who worked for the county, used to mow the grass near that part of the road. He saw her once, barely noticed her until she turned. Just stepped behind a utility box near the tree line and vanished. The next day, he quit his job. Wouldn't explain why, just told his supervisor she doesn't want to be followed. Another account comes from a pair of tourists, city folks passing through. They were parked along the side of the road, stretching their legs, when one of them saw her near a gap in the trees. Before her friend could stop her, the woman stepped off the road and followed the girl behind a low stone wall, just a few feet. Gone. She didn't scream, didn't call for help. She just walked out of sight and never returned. Authorities searched for days, dogs, drones, the works, nothing, no footprints, no trace. The friend said it was like watching someone walk off stage, only there was no curtain, just the trees. Then there's the teenager who filmed it. He was on his bike, coasting slowly with his phone angled out in front of him. He caught her on camera, standing at the edge of the road. As he approached, she turned, slow, precise, and stepped behind a broken-down fence. The video shakes, jolts. He drops the phone. He swears he didn't move. He says the phone was in his hand 1 second, on the ground the next. When he picked it up, the footage was gone, except for one frame, not of the girl, of the trail she walked into. Except in that image, the path didn't look like a trail at all. It looked like a hallway, straight, smooth, and lined with something that looked far too even to be trees. He never rode that road again. And it isn't just the ones who vanish, it's the ones who follow and return. A woman in her 60s saw the girl one evening as she drove home from her daughter's house. She didn't stop, but she slowed, watched as the girl turned the corner behind a patch of thick brush. The woman pulled over, unsure why. She sat in her car for nearly an hour. When she finally drove away, she said it felt like something had ended. Not with panic, not even with fear, just a finality. Like whatever moment she'd been in had shifted slightly off track. Like she'd missed a turn but not on the road. And ever since, she's dreamed of corridors, long ones, silent, with walls that breathe. Another man. This one, a jogger, was found wandering along the road, barefoot, eyes wide, clothes torn like he'd run through brambles. He couldn't say where he'd been, couldn't even say how long. But he kept repeating one thing. She went around the corner. I thought I could catch up. That's the mistake, isn't it? Thinking you can catch her. The vanishing turn isn't just physical, it's psychological, existential even. It plays on the idea that if you step just a little further, you'll understand something, find something, reclaim something you didn't know you'd lost. But the truth is, you don't follow her to find answers. You follow her because something in you believes she already has them. And that's where the danger lies, because the girl never looks back, never checks to see if you're coming. She walks with the confidence of someone who knows where the path ends, and yet no one ever sees where it goes. That turn, the one she takes, it isn't just a trick of the trees, it's something deeper. A fold in the road, a thinning of the world, a place where things overlap. There are stories, old ones, passed down in quiet kitchens and over late-night phone calls. Stories that say the road wasn't always like this, that the curve, the turn, the moment, whatever it is, used to be something else. A footpath, a border, a crossing. One that marked the end of one place and the start of another. A girl once followed the girl with the balloon. She didn't vanish, not entirely. But when her father found her hours later, she was crouched behind a tree, clutching a handful of leaves and humming to herself. He asked her what happened. She said, "She showed me something." When asked what, she only smiled. Not happily, not sadly, just smiled. She never spoke about it again. But her father said she never walked quite right after that, like her body still remembered a place she hadn't meant to leave. People say the vanishing turn is a test, that if you follow and return, you weren't the one she wanted. That if you feel the urge to step off the road and don't, you were lucky. But the worst stories, the ones that never get shared too loudly, those are about the people who didn't follow, but still feel like they did. They dream of turns that never appear again. They wake up with dirt on their hands. They avoid mirrors for reasons they can't explain. Because sometimes you don't need to take the step to be taken. Sometimes it only takes watching her vanish. So if you see her, if she turns, slowly, carefully, and steps out of sight, don't follow, don't wonder, don't let your feet move, no matter how much your heart whispers that will only be gone a moment. Because some turns don't lead back to where you started, and some vanishings don't need your permission. Most who follow don't return, but a few do, and when they do, they're never quite the same. The town has stopped talking about them openly. It's not out of cruelty, more like discomfort. Like trying to retell a dream you don't fully remember but can't quite shake. Those who came back from following the girl are left out of most versions of the story, but they exist, they're real, and if you've lived in town long enough, you can list their names without having to think. There's the mailman who once delivered letters to every home, cheerful and talkative. After his sighting, he stopped speaking altogether, not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't. His family said he began to leave the house at odd hours, walking without purpose, always toward Hollow Pine. If they tried to stop him, he'd freeze, eyes unfocused, like he was listening to something far away. He'd always return, but never the same. It said he now spends hours staring at windows that face nothing but trees. Then there was the high school girl, bright, funny, a soccer player. She went missing for 3 days, no signs of a struggle. Her car left idling near the curve. When she came back, she walked barefoot down Main Street, silent and soaked in river water. The strangest part? There was no rain. She doesn't talk much anymore, just hums sometimes. A soft, looping tune that no one can place. And when she does speak, it's fragmented. Half sentences, fragments of thoughts that don't connect. She was small, she said once, unprompted, but her hand was too tight, like she didn't want me to fall behind. The local doctor gave her a clean bill of health. No signs of trauma, no memory loss, but when asked to draw a clock, a simple test, she drew a spiral. Just circles, tighter and tighter, all in red. Then there's the couple from out of town, stopped to rest on their drive. Only one came back. The woman, pale and shivering, wandered into a diner at dawn. Her clothes were clean, her hair untouched, but her eyes, blank, like glass left out in the sun too long. She didn't mention the girl, didn't mention her partner, just sat down, ordered a cup of coffee and said, "I was almost part of it." She never explained what it was. Those who come back wrong don't scream, they don't panic, they don't tell dramatic stories of the things they saw. That would almost be easier. What they bring back isn't a memory, it's a sensation, an echo. Like the girl gave them something to carry, and they're still figuring out how heavy it is. You can always tell who they are. They flinch at the sound of wind chimes. They pause too long when children laugh. They avoid balloons like they're watching something rise that shouldn't. And then there are the subtle changes. One man lost the ability to recognize his own handwriting. Another began dreaming in a language he doesn't speak. A woman said her reflections started showing her in clothes she didn't own. For a while, she covered every mirror in her house. Claimed the girl was just behind her in the frame. They all come back with something missing or something added. One boy, barely old enough to drive, was found sitting on the steps of the town library, murmuring quietly. He had a notebook in his lap. Pages and pages of a single phrase, repeated over and over. Don't forget your name. Don't forget your name. When asked what it meant, he said, "That's what she said when I let go." There are moments, even years later, when something slips through. A phrase, a tune, a twitch of the hand. The girl never returns for them, not that anyone's seen. But it's like a part of them never fully came back. Some townsfolk believe these people didn't truly return at all, that they're placeholders, echoes, people wearing their own skin but with someone else humming in their bones. One theory, rarely spoken aloud, is that the girl doesn't take you with her. She trades, that when you follow her around the vanishing turn, you leave something behind, and sometimes something else follows you back. Not malicious, not dramatic, just wrong. Like a photograph where the shadows don't quite fall where they should. It's not always obvious right away. Sometimes it's just in the eyes, a lack of blinking, a moment too long spent watching the wind move through the trees, or a smile that looks too much like hers. One teacher at the local elementary school swears that one of her students, just a child, returned from a walk through the woods with a different posture, a different tone. He used words he hadn't known the week before. He refused to answer to his name. "That's not me," he said. He stayed with her. His parents moved soon after, quietly. No forwarding address. What's most unsettling about the ones who come back wrong is how small the changes are. It's not like in the movies. There's no possession, no glowing eyes, no grand reveal, just a quiet shifting, a drift. And the unshakable feeling that somewhere in the trees beyond the road, something else is waiting to complete the exchange. So if you're ever tempted to follow her, if you see the pale dress and the red balloon and think you'd like to know what lies beyond that bend, remember this. Some people do come back, but they don't all come back as themselves. And some of them, they don't know the difference. If you ask around, the stories always start with silence. A quiet so complete it makes your ears ring. The hush of the woods, the lull of an empty road. But listen closely, really listen, and you'll notice it's not silence at all, it's waiting. Because just before she appears, something always breaks the quiet. It's never the same sound. That's what makes it worse. There's no pattern, no trigger. Just an unsettling series of clues, subtle and soft, as if the world is trying to whisper a warning you won't understand until it's too late. Wind chimes. They're the most common, not from a porch, not from a tree, not even from a visible source, just that unmistakable metallic tinkling carried on air that doesn't move. It shouldn't be there. And yet, there it is, just before someone sees the girl. Some hear it behind them. Others, faintly ahead. Some say it sounds beautiful. Others say it's off-key, twisted, notes that belong to a different scale. A park ranger once described it as music made of glass and regret. She heard it while walking the boundary near dusk. 3 notes. Then the girl. She didn't speak of it again. Then there's the laughter, not loud, not unhinged, just a single giggle, light and airy like a child's breath through cupped hands. It floats across the road and disappears just as quickly. 1 second it's there, the next it's like it never happened. People who hear it say it doesn't make them smile. It makes them freeze, because it doesn't come with footsteps. It doesn't come from any direction. It comes from everywhere. One man, a mechanic driving home late, said he heard the laugh inside his car, windows rolled up, radio off. He said it was like it bubbled up between his ears, a sound that didn't travel through the air but through him. He pulled over and saw her moments later. She didn't laugh, she never does, and then there's the sound no one ever wants to hear, the pop, like a balloon snapping. It's quiet, but not soft, quick, sudden, the kind of sound that makes your skin jump even if you're expecting it. Some hear it behind them, some hear it overhead, some say it sounds wet. One woman, a florist returning from a delivery, heard the pop just before the light changed. She looked up and saw the balloon rise above the tree line just slightly, then dip. When she glanced back, the girl was there, right by the roadside, silent, smiling. Another boy, walking home from a friend's house, heard it too. He thought it was nothing until he found a piece of red rubber tangled in a bush the next morning. He didn't touch it. Said it looked too fresh, like it hadn't weathered at all, like it had been waiting. These sounds, chimes, laughter, the pop, they don't just signal her arrival. They announce a shift, a turn in the atmosphere, a subtle bending of the rules. And the worst part? They're not always heard aloud. Some people say they dream the sound a night or two before they ever see her. One man dreamed of wind chimes hanging from trees with no leaves. He woke up with the sound still echoing faintly in his ears, like a song from another room. 2 nights later, he saw her near the curve, and just as quickly she was gone. Others say the sounds play backward, that the chimes strike notes that feel reversed, that the giggle ends before it begins, that the pop happens in reverse, like something reforming rather than breaking. That's what unsettles them most. The idea that it's not just sound, it's time being bent. That when you hear these things, you're not just being warned, you're being rewound, repositioned. One teen recorded ambient sound while driving late at night. He was doing a school project on silence in rural environments. What he caught instead were 12 seconds of static, then a chime, then the softest, faintest sound of a balloon stretching, not popping, stretching. When he listened back, he swore the file glitched, but only when he paused on that moment. The waveform froze, his computer crashed. When he rebooted, the file was gone. He stopped working on the project. What links every sound is the sense that it doesn't belong, not to the road, not to the time of day, not to this world. These sounds are displaced like echoes from a place just out of sync. They slip in through cracks you can't see until they're already there, and they're always followed by the same thing, stillness. You hear the sound, you look up, and the world holds its breath. Even the insects stop, the wind settles, the air grows heavy with expectation. And then, she's there. So if you ever hear wind chimes in a place that shouldn't have them, or a giggle that doesn't belong to anyone near, or a pop that comes from nowhere, don't check the trees, don't check the road, because if you look too quickly, she'll already be watching. And once you hear her arrival, you're part of the story now. The sounds aren't warnings, they're introductions. Everyone remembers the balloon. That's what sticks. Long after the sighting, long after the memory of her face fades or the details of the moment blur, it's the balloon they recall. That perfect red shape, too round, too still, glowing like a drop of paint suspended in air. But red fades. Everyone knows this. Red bleaches under sunlight, red rusts, wilts, washes out, except this one doesn't. The stories say the balloon stays the same color no matter what. Bright red, not glossy, not matte, just red. Not a single person has seen it dulled by weather or dimmed by shadow. Daylight doesn't change it, night doesn't swallow it. It's always the same, and somehow that's what makes it feel most unnatural. A retired paramedic who once saw her at twilight described the red as wrong. Not blood, not paint, something deeper, something stubborn. He said it reminded him of taillights in fog, except sharper, almost glowing without light. It was like it wanted to be remembered, he said, like it didn't want to fade. Some people believe the red isn't a color at all, but a memory, a stain left behind from something older, something the balloon is holding, or displaying, like a warning. One theory shared only in whispers is that the balloon wasn't always red, that it became red, over time. That it absorbed something, maybe from the place, maybe from the people. No one knows for sure. There's a story about a boy who saw her while walking home from football practice. The girl was standing on a slope, slightly above the road, her balloon bobbing faintly against the still sky. He said he saw something strange about it, a faint shimmer, like it had writing on it. When he squinted, it was gone. But for days after, he swore his palms itched. He described it as static under the skin. His friends said he started wearing gloves, even in the heat. Another woman claimed she got close. Too close. She didn't mean to, just stepped out of the car for a better view. The girl didn't move. The balloon floated just beside her, and in that moment the woman thought it looked heavy, dense, like it was full of something thicker than helium. She didn't approach, but she stared too long. Later that night she found a red smudge on her sleeve, a streak like paint, but dry and clinging. It wouldn't come out. She burned the shirt, said she could still smell it afterward, like old metal, not rust, something colder. Then there are the stories where the red shows up again. Not just on the road, not just in the trees, but in places it doesn't belong. A child draws a red circle over and over again in their notebook until the pages warp beneath the ink. A man dreams of a balloon hovering in his hallway, never moving, never swaying, always watching. One woman woke up with red fingerprints on her bathroom mirror. She lives alone. What unnerves people most isn't the color, it's the permanence. The red doesn't fade, doesn't change. Even when everything else does. The leaves fall, the light shifts, the memory dims, but that balloon, that shade of red, lingers like something that refuses to forget. It's a kind of mark, not a warning sign, but a flag planted in the fabric of your mind. a reminder that something has passed through and that it left a piece of itself behind. Some say the red isn't just visual, that it touches a different part of you, emotional, instinctual, that when you see it, something inside you recognizes it, not from this life necessarily, but from somewhere, like déjà vu that leaves a chill. One young man said he felt a pulse in his jaw when he saw it, a throb, like remembering the exact moment you lost something important. Not dramatic, just a drop in your chest, a realization that you can't quite name. The color carries weight. There's a phrase that pops up in old letters, written by a woman who lived near the road back when it was still dirt and gravel. She wrote of a child with a ribbon instead of a balloon. Red, of course. She called it the color that won't let go. That's how most people describe it now. Not bright. Not dark. Just there. Persistent. Unyielding. So if you ever see her, still, silent, framed by trees, and your gaze drifts to that balloon, know this: it's not a decoration, it's not for play, and it's not meant to be released. It's a tether, and the red, that's the color of something that stays. Even when everything else fades away, every town has one. The person who flinches at the sight of red balloons in store windows. The neighbor who refuses to drive that stretch of road, even in broad daylight. The old man who always walks the long way home, no matter how far out of the way it takes him. They don't talk about it directly. Not unless you catch them at just the right moment. Not unless the air is still enough, the sky dark enough, and you ask the right question. Because they remember. They remember her. One of them. A retired teacher named Mrs. Lawn keeps a journal. She doesn't advertise it, keeps it tucked away under a loose floorboard in her home. Her granddaughter found it once while playing. The pages were filled with dates, descriptions, sketches of balloons and trees and a curve in the road drawn over and over again. One entry stood out. She's closer now. That was the last one. Mrs. Lawn passed away 3 days later. Another man, a gas station clerk, used to hang wind chimes just outside the door, not for aesthetics. He claimed it was the only thing that kept the silence from building up too much. Said the moment things got too quiet, he'd hear her. Not see, just hear. The chimes were a warning, a barrier. He took them down once after someone complained about the noise. They found him outside the station the next morning, sitting on the curb, staring at nothing, no signs of injury, just an empty look and a faint smudge of red on the back of his hand. He doesn't work there anymore. The people who remember her don't always say it out loud. Sometimes it shows in their habits. The way they glance over their shoulder when the wind dies down, the way they lower their eyes when a child's laugh rings out too close to dusk. They don't tell you not to go looking for her because they know it doesn't work. Curiosity is the oldest trap in the world. But what they do try to do, quietly, subtly, is leave markers, unspoken signs, a porch light left on a little too long, a warning etched into the side of a bench. Stories half told around fire pits, with just enough left unsaid to make the listener fill in the blanks. And then there are the ones who try to speak plainly. A high school janitor once told a substitute teacher, "If you see her, just don't stop, not even to blink." The second you acknowledge her, she sees you, and if she sees you, that's it. The substitute laughed. He didn't show up the next day. His car was found idling on the side of the road. And here's where things get uncomfortable. These warnings, they're not meant to help you escape. They're meant to delay the inevitable, because those who've seen her believe she chooses, not out of malice, not even out of need, but out of something colder, a kind of cycle, a pattern, a purpose. The warnings are a kindness, a last-ditch effort to buy time, not to save someone. Just to slow the story down. There's one woman in town, no one's sure how old she is, or if she even still lives there, who leaves ribbons in the trees near the edge of the road. Always red, always tied low, never on branches too high for a child to reach. Some think it's superstition, others believe it's a message. Not for the people. For her, as if to say, not yet. That's what makes the whole thing so unsettling. The sense that the warnings aren't meant to keep us out. They're negotiations, reminders, delays, because the people who remember her know she's patient. And the scariest part? No one knows what happens when she runs out of patience. So if someone ever stops you on the street and says something that doesn't quite make sense, if they hand you a charm or a note or just look at you with wide eyes and say, "Don't turn left at the marker tree, don't dismiss them, that's not paranoia, that's a warning." And it may already be too late. No one knows where she goes. That's the heart of it. for all the stories, for all the sightings, the theories, the warnings scrawled on fence posts and whispered from one generation to the next. No one really knows what waits beyond the turn. They just know not to follow. But those who have, those who've stepped off the road and vanished behind the veil of trees, well, some of them don't vanish entirely, not all at once. A few come back, changed, distant. Others are never seen again. And for those left behind, only one question remains. Where does she lead them? Some say it's a place between places, not a location, but a condition. A space where time folds in on itself, where memory and identity get tangled like roots beneath the forest floor. A boy once told his sister before he disappeared that he dreamed of a place where the air tasted like sleep and the sky blinked slowly. Others think it's a kind of purgatory, a soft one. The kind you don't realize you're in until you try to leave and find you've forgotten how. They call it the quiet path, a name that feels more like a whisper than a destination, a place where you walk endlessly but never feel lost, because being lost means you're trying to get somewhere. And this place, it makes you forget why you ever wanted to. There are fragments, pieces of memory from those who returned half whole. They mention hallways lined with trees, rooms that feel like memories, reflections that blink before you do. They speak of landscapes that shift when you stop looking at them, and voices that sound like people you miss, saying things you didn't know you needed to hear. And then there's the quiet, always the quiet, not peaceful, not oppressive, just final. Like the end of a long conversation where nothing else needs to be said, where you sit in silence not because you're out of words, but because the words no longer matter. One man, after wandering off for nearly a day, was found sitting beside his car, eyes glassy. He didn't remember how he got there, but he did remember one thing. There was no wind, not even in my thoughts. Some think she leads people to a memory of themselves, a version that never got to grow, a shadow self, paused in a moment of regret. Others believe it's a place built of longings, a patchwork of all the things people wish they could return to. Childhood bedrooms, lost friends, roads not taken, and some, especially the older ones, say it's none of those things. They say she doesn't lead you to a place at all. She leads you back to a moment, but not your moment, hers. That's why the balloon never floats, why the air stills, why the trees curve inward like ribs around a heart that forgot how to beat. She's not showing you your past, she's drawing you into hers, and the more you linger, the more you start to feel like you've always been part of it. There's a story, half forgotten, about a child who followed her into the woods and returned weeks later. He was barefoot, hungry, but calm. He didn't speak much, but once when asked where she took him, he said this: "She didn't take me, she showed me where I already was." It's the kind of sentence that sticks with you, because it implies something deeper, that following her doesn't bring you somewhere new, it brings you somewhere familiar, a place you've spent your whole life not remembering. The quiet path isn't dangerous because it's dark or twisted. It's dangerous because it feels safe, because it doesn't ask anything of you. No pain, no urgency, no weight, just stillness. That's how she keeps you, not with fear, with peace. So if you ever find yourself stepping off the road, chasing a glimpse of white and a flicker of red, if the air grows thick and the world gets quiet, ask yourself this: are you being led somewhere, or are you finally being allowed to arrive? Because some places don't look like traps. They look like rest. And rest, when it's endless, isn't rest at all. It's surrender. No one knows when it began, when she first started turning around. For years, all the stories described her the same way: still, silent, facing away or standing slightly to the side, the red balloon hovering beside her like punctuation. She never approached, she never reacted. And for many, that was what made her feel distant, untouchable, other. But lately, some say the story's changed. Now, there are whispers that she turns, that she lifts her head, that when she does, she's no longer a stranger at all. She's someone you've lost. It doesn't happen to everyone. Only a few have told this part, and even then, it's never quite clear. They describe the moment like slipping into a memory they didn't know they still carried. A shape that feels familiar, a tilt of the head that mirrors someone they used to love, a face that doesn't belong to the girl at all. Because sometimes, when you follow her long enough, she turns around. And the face looking back is yours. Not a reflection, not a trick of the light, but someone you miss, someone you can't bear to forget. A brother, a mother, a childhood friend, the one who left without saying goodbye, the one who said goodbye and never meant it. One woman described seeing her son's face, the same boy she buried 10 years ago, standing under the trees, holding the red balloon. He didn't speak, just looked at her and smiled. She walked forward, just 2 steps, and when she blinked, the face was gone. Another story, this one older, comes from a man who lost his sister in a flood when they were children. He never saw the girl, not really, but he dreamed of her over and over. Each time her back was turned, each time he would try to call out. And each time, just before he woke, she'd begin to turn. He never saw her face, but he swears he knew it would be hers. This is the trap. It isn't fear, it isn't terror, it's love, the most dangerous kind of love, the kind you haven't finished grieving, the kind you never got to say goodbye to. Because when she turns, and the face looking back isn't a stranger, it breaks something open in you, something you've kept stitched together just enough to survive. And when that seam splits, when hope mixes with loss and becomes longing, that's when you step forward, and you don't come back. People say the girl chooses her face carefully, that she knows what will stop you in your tracks, what will quiet the part of your mind that knows better. She doesn't force you to follow. She lets you think you've been given a second chance. And maybe, in a way, you have. But not the kind you hoped for. There's a journal in the local library archive, tucked behind years of flood records and forestry reports. In it are scribbled notes, memories, fragments of someone trying to piece together what they saw. One page simply reads, "I knew it wasn't her, but I wanted it to be." And in that moment, wanting was enough. That's the part people don't talk about, that we're not just afraid of the girl, we're afraid of what we'll do if she turns and becomes someone we can't bear to lose again. Because what do you do when grief smiles back at you? What do you do when the voice you miss speaks without sound, just in the way someone stands, the shape of their shoulders, the turn of their chin? You go to them, of course you do, and that's how she keeps you, not through horror, through kindness, through comfort, through a lie that looks too much like truth to resist. So if you ever see her face, if it's someone you've lost, someone you'd do anything to see again, pause. Even just for a moment, ask yourself what they would want. Would they want you to follow? Would they want you to trade yourself for the memory of them? Because once you see that face, you won't question whether or not to follow. You'll already be moving. The part of you that's human, that aches for something you can't name, will do the rest. But know this, whatever face she wears, it isn't them. It's a mirror, a lure, a shape pulled from your heart and stitched into her silence. She doesn't offer closure. She offers pause. And in that pause, she waits. And if you go willingly, if you follow the shape of your sorrow through the trees and into the quiet, she will not stop you. Because that's how the trap works. It doesn't close behind you, it opens in front of you. And by the time you realize what you've stepped into, it's already shaped itself to look like home. So the next time you're driving that road and the balloon catches your eye and the girl turns just slightly, and you think, for just a breath, that you recognize the face looking back, don't wave. Don't stop. And whatever you do, don't smile back. Maybe the scariest stories aren't the ones that chase us through the dark, but the ones that speak softly and wait for us to come closer. Maybe the real danger lives not in monsters, but in memories we never let go of, the ones that promise comfort if we'll just follow them a little farther into the woods. So wherever you are tonight, and whatever you carry with you, hold it gently. Grief has a shape, and sometimes it smiles. If this story stayed with you quietly in the back of your mind, I'd love to know what would you do if you saw the girl with the red balloon. Feel free to leave a comment, share your thoughts, or simply say hello. And if you'd like to hear more folklore like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, take care of your memories. They remember you too.